AI will replace us sooner than expected. Ivy League schools are entering the find out stage. And happy Liberation Day, everyone! We're free! Except from existential economic anxiety. That and more on this week's America Uncovered headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Over the years, I've covered the economy extensively, but I don't know if I've ever seen a situation this dire, and dare I say, bleak. Of course, I'm talking about Hooters filing for bankruptcy. I thought even a recession wouldn't be able to take down this giant pair, and by that I mean beer and chicken wings. The chain said it's not going anywhere, just reshuffling finances. I guess they're just doing whatever they can to stay afloat, which is crazy because I thought Hooters had no problem floating. While Hooters isn't going anywhere, many other jobs are, especially in the government. The Department of Education says up to 1,300 of its employees will be laid off, and layoffs have begun at the U.S. Health and Human Services Department, with up to 10,000 employees expected to be cut. Fortunately, those employees won't have to worry about their jobs for long. In fact, apparently, none of us will have to worry about jobs for long because Bill Gates predicts that within 10 years, AI will replace many doctors and teachers, and humans won't be needed for most things.
We weren't born to do jobs. Jobs are an artifact of the shortage that, oh gosh, somebody better be a farmer. Okay, somebody better, drive those trucks around. And so as you get away from that being a necessary thing, you get a lot more leisure time, and you get almost a philosophical question of, okay, and it'll be people who've grown up in that world of no shortage who will have to think through.
Boy, I'm sure looking forward to all that extra leisure time. Maybe we'll spend it camping. And with that leisure time, we'll get to spend all day creating art and hilarious memes. Oh wait, AI took that too. Cats working at McDonald's. Man, they're even coming for Trump's job. Speaking of Donald Trump and not wanting to lose his job, by now I'm sure you've heard that Trump is quote-unquote not joking about possibly running for a third presidential term, despite the 22nd Amendment saying no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. So is he really going to do that? Well, after almost 10 years of Trump being the only thing the media focuses on, I would have hoped we'd all learned by now that everything Trump says needs to be taken with more grains of salt than McDonald's fries. Trump has a tendency, some psychologists would even say a compulsion, to troll the left. And you can see it's still working based on all the predictable reactions calling him a fascist, an authoritarian, and a dictator. Because dictators are so widely known for reducing the size of government by thousands of employees. So what did Trump actually say?
You said you were not joking about a third term, about possibly wanting a third term. Does that mean you're not planning to leave office on January 20th?
I'm not looking at that, but I'll tell you, I have had more people ask me to have a third term. And I'm just telling you, I have had more people say, please run again. I said, we have a long way to go before we even think about that. I don't want to talk about a third term now because no matter how you look at it, we got a long time to go.
Are we sure Trump wasn't secretly replaced with AI? Because that sounds like what ChatGPT would say if you gave it the prompt, have a president talk about a third term in the style of Trump. The only thing it's missing is a sad, and for the transcript to be all in caps. So he's not saying he's going to run for a third term. He's saying other people are saying he should run because he's doing such a good job, and that he's not thinking about that right now because he's focused on doing such a good job. So this talk of a third term is less seed planting than it is aggressive back patting. This would be like me saying, everyone is saying my YouTube channel is the best and everybody should create extra YouTube accounts just so they can subscribe twice. And if you're worried about Trump saying there are methods for him to get a third term, that method is him having J.D. Vance run with Trump as his vice president, then have Vance resign and allow Trump to take over in a third term. But that would be immediately contested in courts because even though the 22nd Amendment says no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, the intent is always more important than the literal words, and the intent is obviously to prevent third presidential terms from happening at all. If only there were term limits on Congress, too. Boy can dream. Though considering how exhausting the U.S. presidential elections have become, I wouldn't be opposed to barring candidates from running more than twice, even if they've never won. Except, of course, America Uncovered's officially endorsed Democratic presidential candidate Chris Christie. And I'm only endorsing him for president because if you thought a third term was legally dicey, wait until I say he should be our emperor. And after the break, Tim Walz's shadow government. Welcome back. Fox News reported that Minnesota governor and former Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz called for a shadow government to counter the Trump administration. But I mean, this is Fox News. They're notoriously biased. What did Tim Walz actually say?
We see one of the first things they do is try and restrict the vote. This is one of the things, though, that this is going to take power to the streets. I don't know what the answer is on this, but I've been saying this.
You see, he's just saying that if citizens are upset with the actions of the government, they should let their voices be heard. After all, that's the spirit of democracy. I mean, surely you wouldn't actually use the literal term shadow government, right?
I think we need a shadow government so when all these things come up every single day, we've got an alternate press conference telling the truth about what things are happening, telling what's going out.
Spirit of democracy. I'd like to take a moment to congratulate conspiracy theorists who can now just point to this short video clip instead of lecturing for 3 hours in front of their conspiracy board. This is going to save them so much money in their monthly string budget. Though it is worth dissecting what Walz said, he didn't say there should be a shadow government in the way all of us think of shadow governments, with clandestine meetings of elites secretly running things behind the curtain. He said there should be alternate press conferences where people opposed to the current administration can tell their version of what they see happening. So congratulations, Tim. You just invented MSNBC. For now, let's maybe just stick with the spirit of democracy and oppose legislation you don't agree with in more transparent, traditional ways. Like New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, who filibustered for over 25 hours to protest the Trump administration. This is a new record for the longest speech in Senate history. The filibuster is a useful tool for a minority power to fight back against the majority. Boy, I bet Democrats sure are glad the filibuster wasn't abolished or overhauled. Who would be silly enough to suggest doing such a thing? That would have been short-sighted. Speaking of short-sighted, Columbia University not doing enough to prevent pro-Palestinian protesters from blocking Jewish students from going to class and barricading themselves inside buildings. Yes, the protesters mad about Israel occupying land were occupying land. I know, so weird. I've never seen an example in history of someone with Marxist ideology immediately adopting the tactics of the so-called oppressors over and over and over again. But back to Columbia University. Earlier this month, the Trump administration pulled $400 million in federal funding from the college, saying it failed to protect its Jewish students from anti-Semitism. But hey, $400 million is chump change. Columbia is an Ivy League school. Surely they'll more than make that up, with all the new students beating down the doors to get in, like the protesters beat down those doors. Filthy colonizers. Well, according to a report from the New York Post, a top college admissions consultant helped 10 clients get into Columbia, and not one of them plans to attend. The consultant said this would have been unheard of a few years ago, and that Columbia's reputation has been tarnished. It's hard to argue, since during the height of the protests, the rabbi called on Jewish students to return home, saying it wasn't safe for them. And that's understandable, since some of the protesters have gone so far as to support Hamas. But hey, I'm sure they're just supporting Hamas because they know Hamas has the Palestinian people's best interests in mind. Unless, of course, those people protest against them. Spirit of democracy! So Columbia might have a problem fighting students in the near future. After all, Jewish students who previously would have attended Columbia might not be so keen on it now, thanks to the atmosphere they faced in the past. And since the university is now pledging to try and fight anti-Semitism on campus in the face of lost federal money, students who would normally be inclined to agree with the protesters might not want to attend. And I don't know how many foreign students will want to apply, since Columbia is apparently a lightning rod for ICE agents to come in and survey the actions of non-citizens. And even if the students aren't protesting, they likely don't want ICE agents anywhere near them because there's a chance they could be deported to the El Salvador mega prison by mistake. The Trump administration admitted this happened to a Maryland father over what they called an administrative error. That's horrifying, and hopefully they're able to bring him home safely. The only bright side I can possibly see here is that the Trump administration actually admitted they made a mistake. That's progress. And if Trump supporters can do the same, that's the first sign of a kid rock becoming an adult rock. Hey, remember last week when I said the stock market was showing early signs of bouncing back as traders were betting Trump's tariffs wouldn't be too bad? Well, I spoke too soon. In March, the S&P 500 suffered its worst month since 2022, despite a slight recovery towards the end. And now everything is back into panic mode. For anyone with savings tied to the stock market, I assume your reaction is, I want to get off this roller coaster, mommy. I don't feel too good. Trying to bet on what will happen with Trump's tariffs is like throwing a jar of wet jelly beans against a wall and guessing which ones will stick. I got $30 on sour watermelon. But speaking of Trump's tariffs, Trump announced a new round of reciprocal tariffs on goods worldwide on what he called Liberation Day, which sounds like the straight-to-DVD knockoff of Independence Day. Although to be fair, if any president is all about getting rid of aliens, it's Trump. Trump is calling the implementation of these quote-unquote reciprocal tariffs Liberation Day because he sees it as the first steps towards America bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. and being liberated from dependency on other countries.
April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again.
However, Democrats are calling it Recession Day and saying these tariffs will lead to a historic economic crash. And standing in the way of at least one of Trump's tariffs, symbolically, was a Senate vote to end the national emergency he declared over drugs coming in from Canada, which justified his Canadian tariffs. Republican Senators Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski sided with Democrats in passing this vote. However, it doesn't have the force of law. All this chaos and conflict over tariffs boils down to people debating what they think is best for the American economy. Everyone has wildly different predictions for the short and long term. Though, frankly, I think it's a waste of time arguing. Mostly because in 10 years, we're all going to be replaced by robots anyway. So let's all stop fighting and get ready for that leisure time we're going to have camping. And hey, do you enjoy the jokes in our episodes? One of our writers is a stand-up comedian, and he just released a brand new special you can watch here on YouTube.
I know a lot of comedians say, don't talk politics, you might upset half the crowd, but I say, I can do better than half.
His name is Nat Baymel, and the special is called Dumb, Scared, Bored, and Horny. Check it out and leave a comment to let him know we sent you. Link below. And as always, support America Uncovered and screw YouTube by subscribing to our new website, AmericaUncovered.tv. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thank you for watching America Uncovered.